Congratulations! You've just been drafted into the ultimate survival challenge. You have been dropped right into the middle of 14th century Europe. The year is 1348, and you are standing in the narrow, claustrophobic streets of London. There is no Wi-Fi, the food is mostly stale bread and questionable meat, and oh yeah, you have exactly 1 week to survive the absolute deadliest pandemic in the history of the human race, the Black Death. Over the next few years, the event you are standing in the middle of is going to wipe out up to 50% of Europe's entire population. That is 25 to 30 million people, gone. As a modern human, armed with your high school biology education and a fancy hazmat suit, you probably think you're smart enough to survive this easily. You know to wash your hands, you know what germs are. But surviving the Middle Ages isn't just about avoiding a cough. It's about surviving a society that is completely, spectacularly collapsing around you. The portal won't reopen for exactly 7 days. Let's see how long you actually last. Day 1. The very first thing that hits you isn't the plague. It's the smell. You see, London in 1348 is basically an open sewer. People dump their chamber pots directly into the streets. But the stench of rotting garbage and human waste is currently being overpowered by something much worse, the smell of death. You try to warn people to boil their water and wash their hands, but they just look at you like you're an alien. Why? Because people in the 1300s didn't know what a microorganism was. They believed diseases were caused by something called miasma, which translates to bad air. They genuinely believed that if you breathed in a foul odor, the smell itself would physically infect you. Because of this, the scientific defense of the day is absolutely hilarious. People are carrying around sweet-smelling flowers, herbs, and spices, holding them to their noses to block the bad air. Some people went in the complete opposite direction. There were folks who believed that sitting in raw sewage would overpower the plague smell with a stronger terrestrial smell. Yes, people were literally sitting in public latrines to avoid getting sick. I suggest you keep walking. Day 2. You're exhausted and you just want to sleep. But stop. Do not touch that rat. You probably learned in middle school history class that the rats caused the Black Death. That's actually a lie. The rats were victims, just like us. The real enemy is practically invisible. It's the flea. Meet Yersinia pestis, a highly aggressive bacteria carried in the guts of the oriental rat flea. When the plague killed the rats, the infected, starving fleas had to jump onto the next best warm-blooded mammal they could find, you. And here's the terrifying reality of the 14th century. Hygiene is a myth. People rarely bathe. They wear the same wool clothes for months, and they share their straw beds with livestock. Fleas aren't just common, they are a fact of daily life. To make matters worse, the medieval authorities, in their infinite wisdom, decided that cats and dogs were spreading the disease, so they ordered massive culls of the city's felines and canines. What happens when you kill all the cats? The rat population explodes. You are currently standing in a city with millions of rats, carrying billions of infected fleas, and every single one of them is looking for a host. By day 3, the horror really begins. You are seeing the physical toll of the bubonic plague. If one of those infected fleas manages to bite you, the bacteria travels directly to your lymph nodes. For the first few days, you just feel like you had a bad flu. Fever, chills, muscle aches. But then, the signature of the Black Death appears, the buboes. Your lymph nodes, mostly in your armpits, your neck, and your groin, begin to swell. And I don't mean a little bump. They swell up to the size of apples or even small eggplants. They become rock hard, extremely painful to the touch, and eventually turn a dark, bruised purple or black. That's where the name Black Death comes from. The bacteria is literally causing gangrene, making your tissue die and rot while you are still alive. And if you're unlucky enough to catch the pneumonic version of the plague, meaning it gets into your lungs, you don't even get the buboes. You just start coughing up blood, spreading the bacteria directly through the air, and you're dead in 48 hours. Your hazmat suit is the only thing keeping your lungs from turning to mush. Day 4, you feel a rumble in your stomach. But whatever you do not go to a medieval doctor. Their cures were often way more lethal than the disease itself. Medical science in the 1300s is based on the ancient Greek theory of the 4 humors. They think your body is full of blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and being sick just means your juices are unbalanced. So what's the treatment plan? Well, the most common is bloodletting. They will literally slice your veins open and drain bowls of your blood until you pass out, hoping the disease flows out with it. Spoiler alert, making a dying person lose 2 pints of blood does not help them survive. But it gets weirder. If you're rich, the doctor might prescribe crushed emeralds mixed with water. If you're poor, they might tell you to drink a glass of your own urine. But my absolute personal favorite is the Vicary method. Yes, doctors genuinely believed that strapping a live, shaved chicken, or sometimes a toad, to your swollen lymph nodes would magically suck the poison out of your body. When the chicken inevitably died, they thought it was because it had successfully absorbed the plague. In reality, it just died from being strapped to a human being, and all it did was give the patient a secondary bacterial infection. By day 5, the psychological toll is worse than the physical one. Society is completely breaking down. Because nobody knows what a bacteria is, the general consensus is that God is punishing humanity for its sins. Enter the flagellants. These were religious zealots who walked barefoot from town to town, chanting hymns and violently whipping their own backs with leather straps studded with iron spikes. They believed that by inflicting pain on themselves, they could satisfy God's wrath and end the plague. Thousands of people joined these cults. But the tragic irony? These guys were walking miles across the country, bleeding openly in the streets, sleeping in crowded areas, and interacting with everyone. They were literally acting as a high-speed delivery service for the plague, spreading it to towns that hadn't even been infected yet. Meanwhile, normal citizens are abandoning their sick family members. Parents are leaving their infected children behind and fleeing to the countryside. Law and order has ceased to exist. Day 6. The death toll is so high they have run out of holy ground in the graveyards. They are digging massive, deep plague pits outside the city, throwing hundreds of bodies in at a time. The famous cry of "Bring out your dead" echoes through the empty streets. You are dodging the carts, completely exhausted. The filters on your hazmat suit are running at maximum capacity just to process the smell of decay. Through the fog, you finally see them. The plague doctors, wearing their iconic, terrifying bird masks. Now, a quick history fact. These specific leather masks didn't actually become widely popular until the plague outbreaks of the 1600s, but the vibe is perfectly terrifying. That long beak isn't just to look creepy, it was stuffed with strong-smelling herbs, spices, and dried flowers to block out that miasma we talked about earlier. They also carried long wooden canes so they could examine dying patients without having to physically touch them. Honestly, keeping your distance wasn't the worst idea. It's day 7. The mortality rate around you has hit an astonishing 80%. Entire family trees have been erased from history. Your suit is out of power. The energy shields are dropping. A swarm of rats blocks the exit of the alley, and you can visibly see the fleas jumping through the air toward your face. You survived. Barely. The Black Death would go on to permanently alter the course of human history. Because so many peasants died, the ones who survived were suddenly highly valuable. They could demand higher wages, better living conditions, and it effectively destroyed the entire feudal system of the Middle Ages. The world was changed forever by a microscopic bacterium, but hey, at least you didn't have to drink your own urine or strap a chicken to your arm. If you want to see where we get dropped next, make sure to hit that subscribe button, leave a like, and tell us in the comments which historical nightmare we should survive next.